Disclaimer, in this video I'll be tearing one of my previous videos to shreds. I am going to curse a lot for comedic effect and scream a lot because I think it's funny.
So sadly I won't be covering comics because they're expensive as hell and I'm dirt broke.
You can find them online, dumbass.
A lot of the time in Sam and Max Save the World, it seems as if some characters are, well, out of character. But I believe this is perfectly normal for the time. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, it was becoming cool for teen boys to lack meaningful emotion and strive to be as politically incorrect as possible.
Okay, this is just completely false. Sam and Max have always referenced pop culture and what's been going on in the time of the media's creation. This isn't literally every bit of content with a minor argument that could be made about the comics. If you can make this argument against Telltale, then you also have to make it against LucasArts and Fox. These characters have always been this way. Each creator just has a different way of showing it. Not to mention that the politically incorrect humor featured in the Telltale games wouldn't be considered offensive at the time of its creation. This is also a major argument against the remastered, that they took out a lot of jokes. My opinion is a little iffy. I think that a lot of jokes that they took out were inappropriate and uncalled for, but I'm a little glad they took it out. I understand why people don't like that they did that. It feels like erasing history, and I get that. Hell, I'm trans, and even I was a little disappointed they took out the Mama Bosco joke. Though I understand how others might have found it horribly offensive. So my say, if you want the original version, go watch the original version. If you don't care for the jokes they made in the original version, then watch the remastered. Simple solution.
Now, I'm not accusing Telltale Games of pandering.
Yeah, 'cause they weren't.
Is seen as a lot more politically incorrect and apathetic.
Wow, really going for the throat on this one, eh? I think my previous points take care of how many times I mentioned Max's personality. Actually, with how I describe it, it may come off as a lack of personality, which would be completely wrong. If you want to get an in-depth analysis, then you have to go to Super Mary 64's channel. They have a really good one up. Plus, they're probably better at putting stuff into words than I am.
They're seen as foils for one another, and they bounce off each other in their own unique ways that others don't seem to do.
Wow, there's a lot wrong with this section of the video, isn't there? Describing shit is not my forte, it turns out. If you want to see an in-depth analysis of Sam and Max's relationship, I direct you again to Super Mary 64, the much better version of my channel. At least they do things right. At least they don't stutter as much as I did. Jeez.
Season 3 is seen as the saddest season of the trio.
Nah, you're just an edgy bitch that wanted to mention Season 3 because characters that don't usually show emotion, showing emotion makes you feel better about your id-driven self.
Sadly, Katzen did not get too much of a chance to express as much emotion as Sam did.
Wow, it's almost like these characters aren't supposed to show too many serious emotions. It's almost like that's one of his defining character traits.
Even back in 2006, Max was seen as this kind of teen idol.
God no, that's just Max's character. Since he's the one marketed more, it'd be weirder for him to be out of character than it would for Sam. That's what makes it all the more impressive that in this time it's virtual, Max actually sucks up his pride and doesn't feel too out of character.
Doesn't mean Katzen didn't perform wonderfully, bringing a certain tone that Andrew Chaikin lacked in his performance in episode 1.
Stop the slander on Kid Beyond! He's a good voice actor, and even if he didn't do Max the same way Kasten did, it doesn't mean he did a bad job at his role. Every single Max voice actor brought something new to the table, and that shouldn't exclude Kid Beyond. Jeez.
Oh, right. I should probably talk about Andrew Chaikin.
Jeez, don't sound so excited. Didn't even care to pronounce his name right.
Now, I'm going off of pure observation with this, but it seems as if Kid Beyond stepped to the plate as Max in the first episode because they didn't have anybody on hand. He was the only one on quick notice, but Kasten gave so much of a better performance and was thus replaced.
God, I could not have been more wrong. No, I'll tell you what actually happened. According to the developer commentary on Episode 2, Season 1, Kid Beyond was replaced because of a medical emergency, and not because he didn't do well in his role. Kid Beyond is a very talented voice actor that does many other roles in the game, and I do not think I gave him enough credit in this video.
I don't think of Sam and Max content as weak.
Slur your words much? The original line was, I don't think any piece of Sam and Max content is weak. I guess I just didn't think that word was important while reading this line. LucasArts presented their story in a silly way with nonsensical puzzles that often couldn't be figured out without walkthrough. Telltale Games presented their story as a modern, at the time, telling, leading it to be a little bit more apathetic than these characters usually are. And Fox, well, they did it right. Okay, this is a biased take. All the misunderstandings that can be seen in this video have to do with my dumbass not being able to put stuff into words. All of the games did a beautiful job. Even Freelance Police, the game that wasn't even fucking released, looked beautiful for 2003. If it was released, it would have been revolutionary for the time. He's telling us exactly what every other iteration should strive to be. Okay, dumbass, how many times do I have to explain this point to myself from 2 weeks ago? None of the voice actors are bad. They all have unique deliveries, and though some variations are drastic, that doesn't make them bad. If you're going to make that argument of anything being a good reference point for Sam and Max voices, it should be Bill Farmer and Nick Jameson, because they were the originals. All of them did a good job, goddammit. You don't feel like you're listening to a voice actor in a booth, you feel like you're listening to these characters in an everyday life. That point wasn't stolen at all. Who is voiced by Rob Tinkler is unique from the other Maxes in the series. Instead of being apathetic like the LucasArts and Telltale games, he instead shows a great care for Sam. Telltale games, they rather bounce off each other, like two drastic shades of the same color. Sam is more chilled out, but still contains a lot of the same insanity that Max does. And Max is more prone to insanity. So think of the difference between Maroon and Bright Red. They're both still red, just different shades. This, again, is a stolen point. At least I did something unique by relating it to colors, but yeah, I need to stop taking other people's points and then acting like I did something. Being the actual first VR game, Sam and Max are no strangers to the concept of virtual reality, referring to the medium in both Hit the Road and Sam and Max Save the World Episode 5 Season 1. Referencing. The word is referencing. I didn't even add any fucking clips. I did this because I didn't think I could find them, like my dumbass didn't have the entirety of Hit the Road downloaded just to add some random-ass scenes, and didn't even bother looking for the same from the VR section. I didn't even take any clips from the whole-ass episode from Season 1. I had a hard time watching the playthrough. Ha! Let's all laugh at the depressed fucker. It requires you to complete a series of tasks along with missions. Breathe, goddammit, you're fucking up your deliveries. Prizes his role as Sam and does a good job at it, as he did in the Telltale games, but William Katzen did not. You could not have phrased that worse! What I meant by that was he didn't return to his role. Why did myself from 2 weeks ago act like retakes weren't a thing after having to retake like 50 lines? And is a perfect match of Kasten, if not a tiny smidge lower. Wow, it's almost like all the voices are unique. Max's personality seems to have changed from the Telltale games. He's a lot less apathetic, showing that he genuinely cares for Sam, going on a rescue mission to help him, and even sucking up his pride to work with you. I think Happy Giant did a good job with this, and generally I don't think there's too many mistakes, except for the fact I have a problem with me calling him apathetic in earlier games. He's an id-driven maniac, to be sure, but he's definitely not apathetic. As an example, I'll use evidence from the very games I said he was most apathetic in. In Hit the Road, if you try to make Sam pick up something too many times, Sam will get upset and start whimpering, at which point Max will start acting very protective and even threatening the player. In the Telltale Sam and Max games, after Max goes through the same thing Sam does at the end of Season 3, he summons a time machine to go back in time to be with Sam, without even knowing if he was there or not, or what might have been going on in that separate timeline. And I do admit that that point was taken from Super Mario 64, who probably did a better job, but in my case it proves my point against, well, myself.
Bouncing Buddha, Max. We're in 3D.
It's been done.
Makes you feel kind of insignificant, doesn't it, Max?
I always feel that way about you, Sam. A bazooka, Sam! A bazooka!
Stop with all the clips! You only needed one clip! This saga of clips is annoying and you knew it!
Are clinically blind. Nah, I'm just kidding. You can have your own opinion, but it's...
Hey, lazy ass! Maybe fix the incorrectly timed pause, then maybe you'd get some fucking views.
I also see that there are two extremes. The ones who really ship Sam and Max to the point of being annoying, and the people who argue so much against it that it becomes annoying.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about this one. Both of them are fucking annoying. I'm not sure if I can drive this point home clearer than I already have, but let me just enjoy the fucking show. Stop making this about your own personal opinion on characters whose relationship is open to interpretation. Got it? Okay.
It would be more geared to the current fanbase. It would be more politically correct than the Telltale games were, and it would most likely include a little bit more explicit canon about Sam and Max's relationship, because that's what the fandom is currently focused on.
No, I think it would be more politically correct because we're in 2021, and that sort of humor is no longer acceptable like it was in 2006 through 12. Also, it probably won't include too much about their relationship aside from them being friends. I think that if there were to be another game like any of the Telltale games, then it would have just as much evidence as any of the other pieces of media do.
That is because VR is necessarily short. Unless you're playing an online game or something like Beat Saber, Sam and Max aren't necessarily long because VR is much harder than making games like Telltale games.
Hey, dumbass, maybe you should have rewritten the line so it made more sense. But what I was trying to say is VR games are not long because VR is a hard thing to master, especially for hours-long content. If you're playing an online game or something like Beat Saber, you can enjoy it for a much longer period of time because it's not story-based. Sam and Max, though it's mostly point-and-click puzzle solving, is also heavily story-based, thus meaning they wouldn't have time to do any of the deeper stuff that I mentioned. If they did, I would be rather impressed. It does open a chance for them to do something like that. It would be a sort of challenge for them. Then again, I don't know too much about VR. It might have already been done. I don't really know.
Already adjusting to their new fan base.
It was playing when me and my girlfriend met. Or maybe it was my boyfriend. It's so hard to tell with us, am I right?
I think the reason this line was used was because it's very hard to tell genders among the water bears, which Max is pretending to be. Yes, this is a relatively progressive line, but I think it's taken a little out of context with the way I was using it.
I believe that the voice talent is going to be David Nolan and Dave Boat. As much as we're going to miss Katzen, I don't think he's coming back for another game.
Never say never.
A post-recording elaboration. When I say I think there's going to be a lot more focus on their relationship, I don't mean that's mostly what we're going to hear about. It's still going to be fairly low-key.
Thank you, God, I wish I would have corrected more things in post.
I don't think Sybil is going to be included, or many of the other minor characters. I mean, maybe Bosco.
Elaboration was needed. The reason why I think this is because Sybil, Bosco, and other characters of the sorts are unique to the Telltale games in that era. If Skunk Ape Games were to continue the Sam & Max franchise, they probably would not follow the same storylines that the original did. I'm sure there would be winks and nods to it, but that'd be the only reference.
I also think the graphics are going to be a lot better given today's technology.
Wow, it's almost like CGI has gotten better with age or something.
24 at least.
24? I mean, my original guess would have been 2024. But, hey, given how much they've starved us for content, I wouldn't put it past them.
Another random tangent. Max's voice actors rarely come back to reprise their role.
Okay, I have to explain a little farther on this point, cause all of them have pretty valid reasons. Nick Jameson and Bill Farmer didn't come back to reprise their role because the Telltale crew wanted to sort of enter a new era of Sam and Max content. Like I mentioned before, Kid Beyond had a medical emergency and couldn't voice Max anymore. They probably didn't want Rob Tinkler to perform as Max because of the previously mentioned reasons that they wanted new voice actors, and because he probably would not be used to voicing in video games. William Katzin is only credited for one other game outside of the Telltale games, which means he's probably not coming back for any other games. But I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, since a lot of the people who knew Katzin worked on the game and probably could get him to return. And David Nolan hasn't had a reason to give up his role. If you ever wanted any reasoning for why some of the voice actors weren't reoccurring, that's why.
Most of every Sam voice actor has reprised their role. Bill Farmer almost reprised his role in Freelance Police.
So did Jameson!
Really just need to get this out of my head and onto paper.
You did a pretty piss-poor job at it.